Hey guys, welcome back to another video here on the channel. It's hard to believe that in my nearly 10 years of having my driver's license, I've not once been behind the wheel of an MX-5 Miata out on public roadways. Now, the one time I do recall being behind the wheel is at the 2023 Mama Spring Rally. They had the ND3 version of the Miata available for track drives, and I certainly took that opportunity to drive this vehicle on the track, but not once have I ever driven it in, day-to-day commuting, and that's exactly what I had the opportunity this week. So a huge thanks to Mazda for sending this vehicle out for me to test and review for you guys. Now, as we know, for 2024, the Miata received a slight refresh with some hardware enhancements, some slight cosmetic changes for this ND3 version. And as you can see here in this beautiful red exterior with the club as well as the RF hardtop form factor, this car is absolutely stunning. Over my last week with this vehicle, though, I've certainly, loved many aspects, and it's solidified, one of, America's best affordable sports cars, if you will. But it's also changed my opinion somewhat as to whether or not I might actually want to own one of these vehicles down the road, just due to some of the physical size and, properties that makes a Miata a Miata. So in this video, I want to take you through a quick walk around tour and see exactly what you're getting here with the 2024 ND3 Club RF Miata in general. And then at the end of this video, I do want to set some cameras up inside of the vehicle itself, take you on a quick spin, and give you my driving impressions and overall thoughts and what I've experienced over the last 6 days or so with this vehicle. So without further ado, let's not waste your time and get right into it. So the MX-5 in front of us is the Club RF hardtop convertible form factor in the MX-5's lineup. Now, as we know, you can get a soft top convertible if you guys are interested in the ultimate performance of this vehicle, or just want a slightly cheaper price point, or just simply don't like the styling that is found with the RF. But personally, I really do like this vehicle as it sits in the beautiful soul red crystal metallic exterior paint, which I've gotten several compliments over my last 6 days with this vehicle from people at the grocery store or just driving it around in person. So like I said, for 2024, this is the ND3 version of the Miata. With that comes some slight styling tweaks, but also some mechanical hardware upgrades versus that of the ND2, which was already a very, well-refined and, nice vehicle as a whole. But I think Mazda made it even better here for 2024. So starting at the front end of the Club RF, you will find that new styling, which includes the LED daytime running lights as well as the LED projector headlights, all within this upper housing right here, where formerly the running lights were found on the lower front bumper and front fascia. So you will receive a slightly revised front bumper, but if you are unfamiliar with the ND series of the Miata, it might actually be a little bit tricky to tell ND1, ND2, and ND3 apart at a quick glance. Now, this one also being the Club RF, as I mentioned, does automatically add the Brembo Performance Package, which includes the sport appearance on the exterior of the vehicle, which is going to be optional on some of the soft top trim levels. So you have the gloss black lips extension, you have the side still extension on the side of the vehicle, and then out back you will have some different styling, including the gloss black rear spoiler, and then also the BBS forged alloy wheels with the Brembo brakes are also going to be found on the exterior. So coming around to the wheel and tire setup, this is going to be standard on the Club RF, optional on those soft top trim levels. It does add the Bridgestone Potenza Sport summer tires in a 205/45 17-inch in size, and these gloss black BBS forged wheels looks absolutely phenomenal and certainly would be my pick, especially compared to that of the Grand Touring vehicle. And then you can see the red accented Brembo calipers sitting behind there with roughly 11-inch diameter rotors, both in the front as well as in the back. There you have an incandescent turn signal here on the front fender. You have gloss black mirror caps. The mirrors are going to be heated themselves and do also include a very handy and functional blind spot detection system. So this is something that I was actually relying on quite a bit while driving this vehicle around town. You have the regular proximity entry on both of the two front door handles. And then backing up here on the side of the vehicle, I do have the top up because I will demonstrate how the top functions once we get on into the interior, but that gives you a look as to what the styling looks like with the top up. And you do have the gloss black painted roof, which contrasts extremely well with the rest of the vehicle. Now coming out back, you will have slight minor aesthetic revisions back here as well. You can see the Sport Appearance package with the lower lip on the rear bumper, slightly revised taillights, but like I said, very hard to actually tell these vehicles apart at a quick glance if you're unfamiliar with it. But it is going to be an LED design with your LED brake, reverse, and turn signals all in that housing right there. MX-5 badging, Mazda logo, Skyactiv G for the engine that is found in this vehicle. And then there is the rear backup camera found centrally located on the rear bumper, which is actually a very interesting location, but obviously given this vehicle is a little bit on the smaller side, likely where they did have to place it for functionality. And they have a normal shorty antenna here that sits just above the actual roof. So this is like one of the tallest points on the vehicle. If you look at it here from the back, that does, stick up, on the passenger side. But anyways, that's going to be a look at the exterior. You guys have to let me know your thoughts and opinions on this vehicle down in the comment section below, but I absolutely adore it. And I think the ND3 styling is fantastic. Now taking a look on the interior, this one also does have the Recaro seats with the suede inserts and the leather accented bolsters. And then taking a look at the door panels, there you can see the paint matched upper trim that matches the body color on the exterior. Now the door panels are absolutely phenomenal inside of this vehicle, given it does include a ton of leather accents with the white contrast stitching. It's nearly entirely soft touch on any areas that you will make contact with outside of this upper painted section, but there's going to be the power windows with the power mirrors. These are only going to be automatic down, not automatic up down, which I would prefer. And then you have the faux carbon fiber trim. And then of course, like I said, the power adjustments for the mirrors and unlock. This does include the Bose 9-speaker premium audio system with subwoofer, as well as headrest speakers up here. And then coming to these seats, this is going to be a manual seat, no height adjustment actually, which I was actually surprised to see, but it does make sense given the very small cabin. You have an adjustment for the front of the seat tilt, sliding on the bottom, and then you recline with this lever right here. And there you can see the Recaro branding on the backrest portion and the Bose on the side for that speaker system that is found behind the two front seats. There's a look at the dashboard. I will have to show you many of the elements back here, given it is a little bit hard to fit in and actually film a lot of it. But there you can see the leather wrapped steering wheel with all of your steering wheel audio controls and the multimedia on the left side. And then you have your regular non-smart or adaptive cruise control on the right side. Headlights are not going to be automatic in this vehicle, which is disappointing. When I first started driving it and had to remember to turn them on at nighttime. But you don't get automatic headlights unless you get a Grand Touring Miata, and then regular intermittent wipers on the right side. To the left of the steering wheel, you will find one of the slight revisions for the ND3 as well, including new dynamic stability control mode indicated by that checkered flag. So if you want the stability control on as a safety net, but want a little bit more freedom to get the tail out, you will have access to that new stability and traction control mode, which is awesome for Mazda to add there. AC vents finished in gloss black, some paint match trim across the dashboard. And then coming over here to the infotainment system, I will go ahead and start the car up. You will find the new latest updated infotainment and UI on the 8.8-inch touchscreen display, as well as the multimedia controller here in the center console area, which we're used to from Mazda. But this provides wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, Sirius XM, AM, FM, USB, Bluetooth inputs as well. And overall, it is very nice, easy to use, and it is a touchscreen at the end of the day with wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. So if you're familiar with many of the recent newer Mazda products, this brings the systems up in line with those vehicles, and I really don't have any complaints. It's very responsive, very quick to react, and again, I like using it on a daily basis. Single zone manual climate control, unless you get a GT, which does add the automatic function. Heated front seats, USB-C charging ports. There's the top control for the power operated top. We will go ahead and demonstrate that here in a second. 6-speed manual transmission, pretty much the only way to get a Miata, but a 6-speed automatic is going to be available as well if you do want that, or can't drive a manual but really want a Miata. There's the manual e-brake, center control for the infotainment system, as well as your volume, back, shortcut buttons, and then a very small padded armrest, but you do have a tiny amount of storage. Basically can only hold papers or something in there. And then coming out back, there is the removable center cup holder, which I did mention in my likes and dislikes as a kind of a thing that gets in the way of your arm a little bit. And then behind the two front seats, you have a lockable central sort of glove box storage area where you can fit your owner's manual and some of the other larger items if you need to store them back there, because at the end of this day, this car does not have a glove box on the passenger side of the dashboard just due to space limitations. So let's go ahead and demonstrate the convertible top. So you can do this at speeds up to 6 miles an hour, so basically rolling or stopped. Simply hold this in the up position. There's a light that comes on down here, and it is also indicated here on the digital cluster. Takes about 13 seconds according to Mazda to go up and down, which at the end of the day isn't too long, but it's not the fastest top in the world. But much, much easier than that of obviously having to manually do it. And there you can see operation complete. And now we have a full open air experience. Well, I shouldn't say full, but a mostly open air experience here above the driver and passenger seat with a little brake here at the back. There you can see the top down. Absolutely phenomenal looking on the exterior with the RF form factor as you retain these kind of nacelles at the back of the vehicle. Of course, air can pass through behind the seats. And yeah, you guys will have to let me know. At the end of the day, it's personal preference, but I actually really do love the top down. Now coming to the trunk area, there is a trunk release here on the bumper that opens the rear trunk, and you can see it's actually surprisingly usable, and really it should be, because this is going to be the main storage and cargo area that is found in this vehicle given the cabin is so small. So you have a little light here on the left side, storage area, you know, in a deep central area. There's the roadside toolkit and some of those other tools provided by Mazda, but basically this fits my tripod very easily. The opening is fairly flat and fairly small, but you can fit some, you know, nice size items in here, including groceries. If you do need to take this car grocery shopping, can swallow up a little bit more than it actually looks like, at least at first glance. Finally, wrapping up here on the passenger side, pretty much everything is going to be identical to that of the driver's side. You don't have the same seat adjustments, so you just have the 4-way manual seat with sliding and reclining. But there's a look at the seat. Dashboard has some great leather accent stitching. Really do like that about the Miata, as well as in the center console. There's the other cup holder. So under the hood of every MX-5, both the soft top and the RF hard top, you're gonna find the same 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder Skyactiv G engine paired to either a 6-speed manual or 6-speed automatic transmission. Now, power is sent through the rear wheels, and this engine produces 181 horsepower and 151 pound-feet of torque, which really doesn't sound like much, but considering the platform and of course the weight of this vehicle, it's really more than adequate in most cases. I never found myself searching for more power. And you know, overall, this was revised for the ND2 version of this vehicle. So there is going to be these same enhancements that did happen several years ago that also are carrying over here into 2024 models as well. You can see the chassis bracing for the strut towers found underneath the hood. And I think, like I said, this engine paired to the 6-speed manual transmission is certainly the way that I would own in a Miata if I were to purchase one of these vehicles in the future. But overall, not a huge amount of power, but this vehicle has such a lightweight and nimble characteristics that you don't really need all that much more power. Oh, it's raining. What the heck? Oh my goodness. What a way to start the review. I guess that's the benefit of having a power top. So setting out here in the 2024 Mazda Miata RF Club hardtop convertible. Well, number one, this is the only time it has decided to rain this week, and I was hoping to do a top-down review for you guys, but I suppose this is going to be the safer way to do it in case the audio does get a little bit noisy. And this is actually, I think, the first time I've driven this vehicle with the top up, believe it or not, all week. I've been thoroughly enjoying this vehicle, and I think, like, you know, the weather has been absolutely phenomenal. So as a whole, you know, it is what it is, but I think it is going to be the safer route. Anyways, now when it comes to power out of this 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, we have a little bit of wet ground. I actually don't have really any major complaints about the power output or power delivery. Now, I know Mazda did make some tweaks to the powertrain for the ND2 iteration of this vehicle, but I think torque and everything, you know, considering the numbers on paper, here in 6th gear, cruising at 60 miles an hour and putting your foot into it, you have a decent amount of power on tap. and it does help that this vehicle is as light as it is. Now, going into the week with the Miata, I had a couple, I guess, expectations or ideas in my mind as to how this week would go. Now, most of those came true, and I think, overall were expected, so there really was not any unexpected surprises, if you will, with this vehicle. But I think the one thing that really got to me over the period of time was really going to be the size of this vehicle. It is very, very small, and that comes down to, just the overall, footprint, and that's what makes an MX-5 an MX-5 at the end of the day. But I've always kind of aspired to own one of these vehicles in a personal collection, or, maybe a perfect 3-car scenario setup. And not that that's changed at all, but after, spending some time, thankfully I am single, so I don't have a lot of passengers inside of my vehicles. But here with the top up, it does get a little claustrophobic inside of the cabin itself. It's not terrible. I'm 5'9", roughly 165 pounds. Could be worse, that's for sure, but I think it ultimately will limit what people can purchase this vehicle or find it comfortable on a daily basis to drive. And I think that's always just been some of the characteristics of this vehicle, but I'm now kind of experiencing it for myself, if you will. Now, outside of the overall physical size, this vehicle has been an absolute joy to drive. Now, this one being a club has the Bilstein damper setup. It obviously has the performance package as well, with the summer sport tires, the newly revised limited slip rear differential for 2024 ND3 models. And, this combined with all of the chassis, bracing and, things that Mazda has done with this current generation makes it an absolutely, hoot to drive. And I have loved every minute of it. Like I said, I've had the top down the entire time except for this review, which is a little bit unfortunate. But the vehicle is pretty comfortable, relatively speaking, over most types of pavement. I haven't had any ground clearance worries. I've never scraped the front lip leaving my driveway, which I have in other vehicles that I've reviewed. So I think from a usability standpoint, it is still a relatively usable vehicle if you really do want to drive this as much as possible when the weather permits. Now, heading into the bumpy section of pavement, I like to test, all the vehicles I do driving reviews with. It is going to be a pretty stiff and firm ride, but it is extremely well controlled and nothing that's really harsh by any means, unless you hit a really big pothole or imperfection in the road. I could see the car getting a little bit, too stiff for comfort. But, I think being a Miata here with the Bilstein dampers, it actually feels quite comfortable. And the seats themselves are actually surprising given the relatively thin nature of the bolstering, the lack of adjustments. At least you do have the leg adjustment here on the driver's side. But given that the fact that there's no height adjustment and, these are Recaro branded seats, they actually are pretty comfortable. Do get a little bit sweaty, not gonna lie, here in warmer, humid weather. Now, in terms of my fuel economy over the past 6 days, it's been actually pretty good, and I have not driven this car lightly. The car is saying I've been getting 30.2 mpg in my mostly combined type of driving, and it does have an instant mpg indicator that's saying we're getting about 50 mpg going 35 miles an hour. But that was over 194 miles that I have currently driven this vehicle. So I would say 30 mpg, driving it, without any regards to getting the best mpg is pretty darn good and really not too far off the actual EPA ratings for the Miata itself. Now, when it comes to some of the feature set inside of this vehicle, the car that I'm driving, stickers just barely under $42,000, including destination and that extra cost red paint color. And this was one of the aspects that did start to get to me just a little bit living with this vehicle, driving at nighttime, etc. Now, if you guys have seen my likes and dislikes video, then you'll know some of these items are going to be mentioned over there as well. But for $42,000, this car has a lot of the features you would expect, but a couple that really should just be here, such as automatic headlights. This vehicle does not have any automatic headlights. You have to get a GT or Grand Touring model for that. But I did catch myself one time when I first drove this vehicle for the first time at night, just expecting the headlights to come on and realizing that it didn't have automatic headlights. So that was a little bit bizarre. It doesn't have automatic climate control. Again, that is found in the Grand Touring. And I would like to see things like automatic up-down power windows instead of just automatic down. But, you know, that's not at the end of the day a deal breaker. But, you know, some of these items that are missing from this vehicle, you know, for the price point is a little bit, you know, off-putting if you were to purchase one of these vehicles brand new. Now, the one highlight I will say is the Mazda infotainment system, which is also one of the changes for 2024. This brings it in line pretty much with the rest of the current Mazda SUV and or car lineup. 8.8-inch touchscreen display when using wireless Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, and it does offer built-in navigation as well if you do get a Grand Touring. But even here with the standard head unit, it's very good. I don't have any complaints at all. And, you know, sending it around this corner here, the handling on this car is absolutely phenomenal. That's 75. Now, anyways, speaking about some of those more features and technology, this car only has regular cruise control with the manual transmission in all trim levels. Unless you get a Grand Touring automatic trim, there is now going to be radar adaptive cruise control found in the Miata. This is a first for 2024. It was previously not found on the Miata at all, so I applaud Mazda for adding this feature. And, you know, with that Grand Touring and that driver assistance package, you will get some more of the slightly more advanced safety or driver assistance features. But it's going to be pretty basic inside this vehicle with the, you know, blind spot detection. You do have safe exit assist functionality, which will alert you if a car, pedestrian, or object is coming up when you're trying to open the door. Really do like that feature. But out here on the roadway at 80 miles an hour with the top up, it's actually the first time I've driven this car at this speed. Handling on center with the new revised steering feel or steering, you know, ratios or whatever Mazda has changed in terms of the hardware actually is very good. It doesn't wander at all, but I will say there is going to be quite a bit of road noise and some slight wind noise coming around the seals of the hardtop or the windows themselves. So that is something to keep in mind if you do want to drive this vehicle frequently on the interstate. But I assume the RF, this top, is going to be a little bit more quiet than that of the soft top, and as we're slowing down to, you know, 40, 50 miles an hour, it's not an issue at all. But just know at those higher interstate speeds, there was definitely some wind intrusion as well as, you know, some road noise coming inside the cabin. You really just can't have any more fun, to me, on the street inside of a production vehicle than that of a Miata, because at the end of the day, they've refined this thing to be like one of the ultimate driver's cars that you can have in the $30,000 to $40,000 price point. And, you know, I think, you know, at the end of the day, there's not much more I can do to explain how unique this car feels behind the wheel. And I'm sure a lot of the other videos out there on YouTube are going to say pretty much the same thing, as, you know, a Miata is a Miata. And I'm personally just glad I finally got to experience this vehicle on my own, out on public roadways, you know, around where I live. And, you know, really get to experience, you know, the true sense of overall engagement you get behind the wheel. As a whole, this car is, you know, awesome to get behind the wheel of. I think the only thing I want to add here towards the end of this video is going to be the value proposition. Now, I know a lot of people out there, some of the other channels would probably say for the low $40,000 price point, you really can't get anything else on the market. And I would generally agree with them to an extent. Sure, there's going to be, you know, options you can get in that, you know, upper $30,000 to $40,000 price point, but do they offer the same level of performance, styling, convertible? All those attributes go into the equation, in my opinion. But I think going back to the Grand Touring versus club vehicles, believe it or not, the Grand Touring with more features is actually less expensive than this one that I'm currently driving. This one is actually pretty much the most expensive Miata that you can buy. And I think for a couple $1,000s less, I would probably choose a Grand Touring RF manual transmission, which gets a lot of the same hardware and, you know, performance bits that this car that I'm driving does, but obviously doesn't get the, you know, Brembo brakes and some of those other bits that are only included with that, you know, optional performance package that is standard again here on the Club RF. So I would probably sacrifice a little bit of the ultimate performance with a Grand Touring manual if I were to own one of these vehicles, just to get some of those features that I kind of expected on this vehicle for $42,000 that this one is missing, but luckily does come on the GT versions of the car. I think that is pretty much where I'm going to leave this video and overall review for you guys. I know it's not the most in-depth review out there on the Miata. If you want that, I'm sure you can find it from some of the other you know, well-known automotive outlets, but very positive experience as a whole. Certainly lived up to the Miata hype that I've kind of you know, heard of over the past, you know, obviously my 10 years of driving, but, you know, watching videos on the internet. It's a very nice car to live with. It's just a little bit on the smaller side, and as long as you're okay with that, I think that is something that, you know, it's a very usable car. It still is, you know, something you can drive all, you know, most of the year, depending on what tires you have on it. But, you know, just note that it is a little bit on the smaller side, and I think that does, you know, kind of impact whether or not I would want to own these cars in the future. It's still for sure on the list, but, you know, whether or not I could sacrifice, you know, getting something a little bit bigger for roughly the same money, depending on what you're looking at, is, you know, always something to consider when, you know, obviously having your personal opinions and beliefs on the car. But I would highly recommend you at least look at the Miata, check it out for yourselves. If you really value performance, the ND3 Club, as I'm driving here with that optional performance package, is going to be the way to go for one of the most ultimate driver's cars currently available, brand new from the factory, with the 6-speed manual transmission. That is a must if you're buying one of these cars. Skip the automatic, manual's where it's at. But nonetheless, absolutely blast behind the wheel. I want to give a huge thanks to Mazda for sending this vehicle out for me to test and review for a week. I thought it was a blast. But anyways, let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below on either the changes for the ND3 version, the soft top versus hard top debate. I want to hear your feedback. If you own a Miata or are familiar with this platform, you know, give me your benefits or, you know, pros and cons of soft top versus RF. I think I'm team RF, but that's just me. I think it looks better, and I think it's a little bit more of a versatile format. But I'm sure there's going to be some strongly, you know, opinions out there depending on if you own a soft top or a hard top. And in general, you know, like I said, leave your thoughts and comments down in the comment section below.